Hello and welcome to The Dive, Season 6, Episode 1.
Woo! Starting off on the wrong foot, we got Phreak in here.
How? It took you all of 4 seconds to blame me.
Welcome to 2022, baby.
We're not even on feed anymore.
Wow, I have been friendly to everybody. I can't believe this.
That's a lie.
Welcome back.
You're very aggressive.
You have no proof otherwise. All recorded footage right now is me being friendly. I think you're a great person, Azael. I think you're a great person.
We have
Mark,
like 10 years of you bullying people on
100% hit
air.
rate.
All right, we're back for 2022. New season of League of Legends. Lock In kicking off this weekend. But honestly, just reading that as Season 6 kind of hit me pretty hard. I was like, oh my God, this is my 6th year of doing the dive. It doesn't feel like that long ago that, you know, Jack, Kobe, and I, we started this as an audio only thing in this little podcast room. And now we have this beautiful studio, been doing it for 6 years. It's crazy. Time flies.
I was about to say, it's unfortunate that Kobe's not here to like wax, you know, romantic about
I'm the only one standing.
Yeah.
Kobe and Jad are both dead.
You're technically
It's unfortunate. True.
Yeah.
I could see. This is why.
Yeah.
This is why.
For clarity, in case anyone thinks Season 6, Kobe's still here. He's just wasn't able to come in today.
Yeah, he's just sick today. He's out. But excited to get another year of the dive kicked off with you guys. Season 12 is upon us.
Woo! Woo!
How are you enjoying it so far? Do you have any goals?
So I'll answer both questions. One, I'm enjoying it a lot, actually. I've been playing much more League over the last 12 months than I had, I think, over the last like 2 years before then. I've really gotten back into League, playing a ton. A lot of it is I've been playing Flex, and I know people like they give kind of a bad rap to like, oh, Flex, XD, whatever, but like matchmaking is actually really good. If you get a bunch of friends around your skill level, like
once you play enough games, like if that is a qualifier. At the start, it's super garbage.
Absolutely. So in the sense that like, hey, if you don't play a lot of games, matchmaking can't inform how to match you, right? But like I'm at a point now where like most of my opponents are between D2 and Masters in solo queue, and they're playing Flex together, and we're playing Flex together, and it's like, well, we're like mostly D4-ish and like winning those games because we're coordinated and we play together like with a similar crew, and it feels really fun. Like they're really high quality games. It feels really, really good. I really recommend if you have friends around your skill level, play Flex. It's a really, really enjoyable experience. That's why I'm playing more League than I have been in a long time. It's really great.
No friends. Unlucky.
Playing in a group is also just way more fun than playing by yourself. I mean, to me, it's just two different games. Like organized play. Flex isn't like super organized and serious.
You're at least like on comms, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, we're on Discord.
And I mean, it depends on your group of friends, right? Some people are full random and first timing and trolling and whatever, and some groups are pretty serious. But I just think coordinated League for me is way more fun. It's why I liked Flex. Why I like FlexQ a lot. It's why I like playing in 5 stacks in normals, and why I liked Riot Rumble and things like that, because it's just like picking for the team feels more rewarding, right? Like I have never minded playing a supportive role if I'm like, oh, this pick actually like brings our comp together, or this pick really enables like a pick that Phreak is going to go or Kobe's going to go or whatever, because then I feel like we're actually going to work together. When I do those supportive picks and then my team is just like off doing in their own fucking world, just doing their own thing, and I'm just like, this is horrible. Like you just left me here. I picked a champion with hard engage and gank CC, you know, and it's like the jungler never comes.
Well, and it's actually fun to get trolled by your friends a little bit. Like if you get trolled in solo queue, you're malding. But if you get trolled by like your friends, it's not so bad. And even playing in different skill levels, I would argue is a lot of fun. I played like normals with Cop back in the day, and he would just like pub stomp. Obviously, he'd be like a 25 kill Twitch, and then he would just start trolling us, and we'd be like, "Dude, we need you to like kill the Baron." He's like, "Nope, I'm just gonna sit in their jungle." And we're like, "You're the DPS. We spent this whole game getting you fed. You're a pro player. Please come here." And so, like, all those moments with friends, whether you're taking it more seriously or you're just trolling, is still better.
Shared suffering is definitely better than the solo suffering. When someone is really griefing your game, you can share that experience.
The line I draw in the sand, though, and I think is actually like just kind of healthy, at least it helps my mindset, is drawing a line between Flex and normals, where it's like it's the same draft, everything is actually identical except the Q type, where it's like, all right, if it turns out the squad on is 3 support mains, and it's like, all right, we're gonna play normals. I'll play top Teemo. I'm not a great top laner, but like YOLO, whatever. We're just like playing the game out. I'm just like, okay, like we got the crew together and we're all like gonna take it seriously. Like, okay, we'll play Flex, and like there's the implicit like we're gonna take it a bit seriously and like try to win and not just like into each other. And like that delineation is, I think, like really healthy and like really useful. And it's like, if your silver friend comes on, you're like, everyone that I've talked to is like chill, like, oh yeah, we're just gonna play normals together, and like everyone's fine because they just want to play League. So like that, I think that's actually really healthy.
I haven't been playing a ton of League. I've actually been grinding Genshin Impact, trying to 36 star the Abyss. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, I've been beating my head against the wall. It's miserable. It's just.
I tuned into your stream and you were just like hopping around in circles and then like restarting the encounter, and I was like, I don't know.
RNG, baby, got to get the AI to do do the right thing, and so I had to wait for cooldowns.
So I literally, I'm like, are you going for some sort of like jumping achievement or something here?
Just
I'm like,
time. I was bored.
Okay. Yeah.
Needless to say,
yeah,
I thought I would have beaten it a long time ago, and I suck.
Or you haven't paid enough money in a paid to win.
Yeah, one of the two.
One of the two.
Yeah,
I'm free
maybe
to play,
both.
So it's not getting better anytime soon.
That's unfortunate.
And anyways, my New Year's resolution is to try to hit Masters.
Oh, cool.
It's a stretch. But like
in Flex or in
even solo queue.
Yep.
So like I think I could legit just hit it in Flex.
Yep.
Like my other like D4-ish friends have like hit Masters during preseason, whatever, and I'm like, okay, like with the squad we can get there. For me, when I ended my climb last season, this was after decaying by going to Worlds. I was in like a D3 MMR, and I just like promoted back into D4. And I'm like, okay, can I get another 2-3 divisions? Maybe. Like if I don't hit it, okay, but like that's what I'm gonna try for.
You were in D3 and you went to D4.
So I was in D3 MMR promoting back into D4 because I decayed out. So I like re-promoted.
Right.
I thought you were getting Valorant stuff.
No.
So like
yeah, right.
Inverse.
I understand. Yeah. Just
like,
promoting back.
If you're in D3, it's actually not a promotion to go to D4.
You actually lost 3 games. Got demoted.
Chain lost games. Like, I went up. Playing too much Valorant.
Yeah.
Platinum's better than Diamond. Weird.
Yeah. That's a big cap.
One thing I will say, as far as just like season 12 in general, like I too am actually having a lot of fun playing the game, and we've been playing a decent bit together. I mean, I'm just happy to play with the group. I think it's fun. We played a little bit Flex.
Yeah,
3 games,
6 games together last week or something.
But I will say, I think this was the worst preseason we've ever had. At least, so I can't speak for like the very early years. I played League in beta,
right?
But then I really like didn't consider myself a League player till like I don't know season 5 or whatever it was, where I actually started playing the game quite a bit. But at the very least, over the last couple of years, where it's kind of it feels like we had set this precedent where it was like really big changes in preseason. And I have really over the last 4 or 5 years started to look forward to that. And every year preseason comes and I get excited to experiment and to figure out the game and to like, really kind of be the first person to find these cool builds or do these things. I love that. This year just felt like the same old League of Legends that I was playing all year. And I am really enjoying the game, but I was quite disappointed because like I'd been playing a lot of bot lane at the time. Like I'm playing Phil and I'd been getting Phil to play marksman all the time. And so I've been playing a lot of marksman and it's like, there's no new items. Everything's basically the same. Like it didn't feel like anything really changed. There are some new items for some roles, but largely it's like crown for mages. People are building a lot.
Yeah.
There's a couple things here or there. Some tanks are going to build the tier item in top lane. Like, and then there was objective bounties and there's 2 new dragons, right? And so there's the new dragon rifts. I don't actually enjoy objective bounties at all. I can't say I'm a big fan of Hextech Rift or Chemtech Rift. So it's like, the things that were actually added, I don't like personally. I don't really enjoy them. And I didn't feel like they changed items up enough. I didn't feel like there was really like a big splash. It felt like more of just a regular patch than a full preseason thing, which I was pretty disappointed.
Well, I was going to say, you used to be like the resident top laner and you'd always be complaining about like the TP situations and all these things. How do you feel about the TP change? I
mean, top is actually my least favorite role to play right now. It's maybe my best role. Top mid or jungle are probably my best roles, or support. But AD is
4 out of the 5 might be my best role.
Well, I think I'm like comparable. I think I'm the worst marksman. Like that feels like the one that's like, yeah, I'm for sure worse.
I'm a trash mid by far. It's like really obvious.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I play marksman, I'm like I'm farming and I'm team fighting. I'm just like my laning is just butt. It's just
yeah.
So anyway, I would say it's my least favorite role. Like prior to the changes already, and now I just like it less because I generally don't like. I was not a player who just like went ignite top lane all the time. Like I'd play some like ignite Kled and stuff, but I like the idea of actually making moves on the map and playing for team. Like I call for my bot lane to deep ward, and like I will actually save my TP to like make a play bot lane and then go to dragon, and like I just think that's a fun way to play the game. Does it happen every game prior to the change? No, of course not. But like I enjoyed the option and I felt like it was a way to actually show skill and show map awareness as a top laner. And now it's just removed. So like you just autopilot TP back to lane. Like there's no brain power used in the first 14 minutes with your TP. So that's kind of annoying. And there's just like a lot more ignite top laners that you're playing against, which like oftentimes you cannot win the 1v1 like, you know, outright. So you have
like
to play it really
Quinn Ignite. You're like, well, I just
you just play it really safe. You play it kind of boring, and you like hope your jungler comes. Otherwise, you just like accept your punishment and you stay under tower, right? And you go down 20 CS or whatever.
Yep.
It's like, and TP can sometimes win you out lane just through like better buys and things. But I would say in general, I'm just enjoying top lane even less, and it was already my least favorite role. So I am not a fan of the changes, and I feel like, well, it remains to be seen how it plays out for pro, but like my assumption was immediately, oh, well, now you just play 2v2 bully lanes and you hard shove because you can't get TP'd on, right? Yeah, the other jungler could come, but your jungler's just going to play bot side too and cover for that. So you play Caitlyn, Lux, or whatever, and you just like default shove and try to kill their towers. So for me, it just made it like I think less dynamic as a top laner because your options are limited compared to what they used to be.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A couple thoughts there. So one, my solo queue or my play experience is the opposite of yours, where it's like I don't have good TP awareness because I don't play solo lanes at all. So I'm like, hell yeah, I get to run Ignite and then no one feels bad about it, and I'm gonna ignore bot lane and I'm gonna play Teemo or Kayle and I'm playing for me. And like I love it, right? Because now I don't feel bad about not PPing bot because I just run Ignite. And as a bot laner, I love that Jax isn't TPing behind me with Counter-Strike ready. Like, like as a player, I love both halves of that equation, and I'm over the moon. So just for what it's worth there. As far as pro, from what I've seen sort of anecdotally, this seems to be true, where it's like, yeah, we're seeing a lot of like Karma versus Lux, Yuumi versus Sona. Like those are both last night. We are seeing a really Enchanter heavy metagame. There are still some tanks in one of the LPL series last night. Game 1 was double Enchanter. Game 2 is double tank. I don't have all the full data, so I can't tell you conclusively which way it's actually going. But we're seeing, a mix. The one thing I do want to bring up is, generally speaking, Yuumi is good into Enchanters. Like, Yuumi is basically a scaling support pick, right? She wants to get out of lane and go jump on a Xin Zhao or an Olaf or a Viego, and they just 2v8 a team fight, and she needs to not die. And when Leona was in every single game, you just killed the Yuumi lane because she can't actually make you survive that. You just kill her with Nautilus or Leona. If she jumps off, you flash Q, she's instantly dead. There's no gameplay, she's done. Flash Flay, Yumi's dead. She can't use her passive in a tank lane. And that turns out if you can't use your passive, you die to all-ins because you didn't use your passive. Right? Your catch-22, but nothing you do works if the enemy tank support is good. But like there was a series last night where DRX, like Yuumi gets first picked red side and they're like, hell yes, Sona. And it's like, this is a 2% advantage matchup. Like you're self-counter picking. Like, yes, Sona can also scale. And if you think Sona's just good and you're like, we get out of lane, hooray. But like, in my opinion, Yumi's just better at that game plan.
So to play devil's advocate, because at least like, I'm not talking about the actual like win rates on this because I know that's mostly what you're focused on. Just in my own personal experience playing Yuumi and playing against Yuumi, I have always felt that like, and maybe it is like the scaling of Yuumi is so good that like I'm looking at it the wrong way. But when I play Enchanters into Yuumi, it generally feels like you have two ranged characters who are auto attacking the enemy AD, and Yuumi can't just like sit unattached and auto attack back. So you kind of just win those trades by default. Yuumi heals, Yuumi uses Q, whatever. But like you have Nami Caitlyn attacking like Yuumi plus anything, and those people are going to get pushed out. So like in my experience, you generally like the Yuumi because they have to spend too much mana healing, and then you can push and you can pressure towers, and that's kind of how you get your advantage. And I think that's how a lot of pros are thinking about it. Now maybe that's not the way it's going to play out. Like it'll be interesting to see like if this is actually becoming a common thing in pro, how that plays out over like 50 games or whatever. Like if the Yuumi is still winning anyway, because maybe then people have to look at it like, oh, Yuumi is a greedy pick, and if it just like doesn't die a lot, it just wins the game later, right? Yeah. And if that is the real answer, then I would say you should be playing things like Zilean, that where you're actually just being even more greedy, right? Where it's like, okay, yeah, Zilean's laning phase is terrible, but if you get through the laning phase, well, now you have a Zilean for the rest of the game.
6v5,
you kind of win.
Yeah, I think the point that you made about the game not feeling super different to play is one that I've seen echoed a lot of places, and I know you don't use as much Reddit, but like it is something that I think a lot of the player base is feeling, that their moment-to-moment thing isn't that different, as well as the fact that the big Drake changes don't appear in every game, and then when they do turn online, it's usually not till later. Games. Yeah, so it's not something that you're going to feel a ton, but it does feel like the meta has changed up enough, at least as a pro play focused viewer, where the TP changes is one where I'm really interested to see how that affects bot lane. We're talking about all the Enchanters being a little bit safer now without needing to get TP flanked on, but also who does that actually help? Because if you're a lane dominant team who plays through bot lane, you're actually good at it.
Pushing lanes.
What's that?
Helps pushing lanes.
Yeah, it helps pushing lanes. But if you were a team that played well around bot lane, you dove bot lane, That's actually harder, arguably, now with...
You don't TP to the minion and then
you can't TP to the minion to tank the wave correctly. You can't get behind them with a ward that you throw down so they can't escape. There's like some techniques that are potentially gone now. And while you might get more isolated laning time, you can't... well, we'll have to see, but my expectation is that you can't blow the game open through big plays quite as easily. And especially if it's an enchanter meta, you don't have like Alistar level 6 just like face tanking. And so I'm really curious about how that affects the entire, like, not just pro meta, but like which teams are actually well suited for that.
It's interesting because I kind of agree with you as far as like if you were playing like kill lane, right? Like that was like how 100 Thieves would do it. They'd play engage support, stack the wave, and then they'd TP down and they'd dive and they'd kill you, right? But I still think you can blow open the game in a to the same degree, but in a different way. Because if I can play, like if they pick, you know, Alistar or whatever early, like, or Nautilus early, and like I don't have to care about getting TP'd on at all, then you just play a hard winning 2v2.
Kate Morg.
Exactly. You're playing Kate Morg and you just play with your brain completely off and you just push and you shove every wave, you W the wave as Morgana, you push it in, and all of a sudden they're playing under tower the whole time. And those lanes can just knock your tower down so fast. Like in Demacia Cup finals, we saw Blind Pick and Kate Lux is played, and they just basically take it in a straight up 2v2 the entire tower, like all plates, everything, because Kate Lux gets to your tower. There's traps on one side, there's Luxie on the other. You can't TP flank them. If the jungler's there to counter gank, it's like you're kind of like checkmated in a way. So I think it is going to become a lot. It's going to become a lot about just like enchanters and winning 2v2s, which will be interesting, right? You know.
Well, I think the other thing that's interesting about it is that like for so long it felt like the support meta was roaming and playmaking. So like when you won bot lane, yes, you could dive in that situation, but also it was like, well, I'm going to go chain gank top lane now. Peace. I'm Nami now. I'm Lux. Like it's just not the same impact, and so I think it does change the bot lane meta in a lot of ways. Like teams like Core JJ, like what does he want to do now in this season? I think all that's still interesting, even if it is what you're saying. Like it does become more push oriented.
I'm just concerned that pro actually becomes
boring,
like, really boring. And I really hope that I'm wrong. But like my pessimistic brain is like, okay, if this is the way that it plays, it's just enchanter versus enchanter bot. You have less engage, so then you want to bring engage through top lane. So you just have two tanks who are just TPing back to top side, slapping each other, and all of a sudden it's like you're back in like Ardent Sensor.
The season just started, Azael. Take that negative attitude out of here.
The positive side is like, oh, maybe you get crazy carries with Ignite top side, and you get really volatile lanes, and like that's what I'm hoping for. But my concern is, oh god, do we just have like Ornn versus Mundo top, and bot is just like Kate Nami versus, you know, Jin Sona, and it's just like
so yeah, to a couple things that you brought up. So one, and I know you know this, but just bring it up for people at home who don't realize, the Demacia Cup finals you're talking about, like that was pre 12-1, so that's pre TP changes. So like even the Kate Lux blind pick, like Turbo push bot, that's even without TP flanks like being deleted from the game. Right. So it's arguably even better now, right? So just like, hey, bring that up. In terms of talking about like what this spills into, it's like, okay, well, pushing bot lane, right? Let's say you are Kate Morgan, you're auto winning. It's like, does this mean you're also going into steal red? Does this mean you're actually just going for plates? Are we doing more dragon stacking than before? Because before the meta was like, you ignored dragons, Herald was what mattered, right? You roamed bot lane up and you always team fought at 8 minutes for top Herald, and sometimes the game ended there. Is that changing? Is Herald more of a sneak now? Does bot lane get to leave? Like if a Yuumi roam sucks because we're going to try to play Yuumi every game, like, you know, are we not fighting for stuff on the top side pre-8? Does that change things around? If Thresh isn't coming into the lane, or, you know, the jungler's always pathing top to bot and is always ready to you know, to curl for Kate Morg, does that mean you can play Trundle jungle, gank for a Fiora, and play top, which I know you brought up initially? I know in one of the champs I saw, look, we had Gwen versus Jax as a top lane matchup, and I think it was LPL, which is like, that's like the way to do it, right? Jax is incredibly good into Gwen, but no one played Jax last year because you need to be ready to play bot lane. Like, yeah, Jax can TP okay with stuns, but like no one went for the greedy beat up Gwen 1v1 picks, right? Like we saw like a Singed in the LCS. We saw very little Fiora or Jax overall in pro play, despite, you know, there's supposed to be good answers here. So I am curious if we see that movement go and move in that direction. To jump to a new topic, something that I want to bring up because I'm really excited about, and I feel like we're kind of done talking about this, is early game priority, how much it matters. We are changing the time at which we're measuring lane leads this season. So this is something that I brought up at the end of last year.
We're going from CSC to 15 to 10?
Yes. Not quite. Oh. It's better than that, kind of, in my opinion. Okay, so
we're gonna hate it.
I think it's great, and we're doing it for the start of season. So the game objectively like changes states at obvious points in time. 8 minutes, is when Rift Herald spawns. And as we saw all of last year, everyone just like ran up there and team fought for Rift Herald at 8 minutes. And at 14 minutes, turret plates fall, which means you're using the first Herald to get money. Those are to be more clear like points in time and inflection points of strategy than 10 and 15. So instead of measuring CSD at 10, where it's like, oh yeah, well, I stayed bot and this guy took Rift Herald, so I'm up 8 CS, I'm a good laner. It's like, no, you stayed bot while the other team took Herald. Right, we're measuring like the wrong things here.
Isn't there an obvious hole in that though? Then if you're saying that like you should only measure up until the time when people aren't going to leave for Herald, like I don't recall at 8 minutes then for an 8-minute Herald, right? Aren't I then leaving lane potentially at 7 minutes to get up there?
Like it might be like slightly imperfect and like, okay, it's slightly going a different direction, but like, if we're saying like, hey, who he's gold difference at 10 is 512, and we take this to mean who he's a really good laner. Because like that's a pretty good way of thinking, right? Like gold XP difference is like a measurement of like how good you are in the early game. Was like, well, actually 100 Thieves are good Herald fighters. And like you are measuring gold at 10 minutes. This is still accurate to what it's doing in like literal terms, but you're really doing is saying, how good is he early game? How good is he at laning really ostensibly? And you get to measure that as actual laning. And yes, 8 minutes versus 730 is different. And there's maybe a wave you stack, maybe it's a plate you stack. But like, you're measuring like more clear game cutoff states, which to me like makes a lot of sense and like is like the more correct way of measuring like these inflection points of like how good are they early game, how good are they until mid game.
2 problems. One, my little brain works on a 10 base counting system, so I don't like
got 10 fingers.
8 don't make sense. Right? We're 8 counting to 14. I don't like it. So that's problem number 1.
Okay,
fair. That's the only problem I have actually. I like the idea of trying to tie it to more in-game related things like first quarter, like how good is the team in the first quarter is what you would ask in a basketball game. You wouldn't ask like first 12 minutes of a 15-minute quarter, it just doesn't make sense. I also like having more numbers because for a while, people would grab one number, CSD at 10 or CSD at 15. But if you actually, there's a program I used for a little while that tracked 10, 15, and 20. And like someone who led the league at 15 would be like last at 20. Like there's actually wild variation depending on where that cutoff point is.
And playstyle and stuff.
Playstyle factors in, just pure randomness can factor in. And so getting more data points that track the actual game and how a player is going through the first 8 minutes, then to 15 or 14 now, and then 20 or whatever you want, because that's when Baron spawns. I think that's another clear break point.
8, 14, 20 sounds like great times to measure things, right?
Right.
And it lets you say like, here's how they do pre-Herald, here's how they do after plates, here's how they do until Baron. And it lets you get these like, and that way you don't get the messy like, well, we started at 10, and that was after the Herald fight. So, FBI's up 212 gold at 10. Yeah, no shit, they won the Herald fight. And they crashed turret plates, and it was tower already.
Or like,
is he a good laner? I don't know.
Or like, they don't rotate. They just ignore Herald, and like, they stay bot lane.
He's up a plate.
Yeah.
Well, then potentially you could be considering CS, right?
Yeah.
I think just gold.
I know.
Either way, stats should be used in conjunction with the game knowledge anyway. So like, okay, this team doesn't rotate for Herald. Let me see what that does to his numbers now. And like, just having more closely correlated game action to numbers makes a lot of sense to me.
It'll be interesting. I think objective bounties can also will be a bit wacky with gold stuff too.
Sure.
Because it'll be like exactly like teams that you would think before, wow, like this is a really good comeback, like as far as like the gold differential, maybe that'll change a little bit. I mean, they're definitely not nearly as crazy as they were when they first came out, so
they come online much later. They happen in fewer cases where you're not really the winning team. So one of the things that happened, for example, because it was like hotfix during 11-23, it was like really early on in the season, in the preseason. The specific thing I can bring up that wasn't just like, oh, they come on later, is dragons count for less when you don't have soul. The idea being, if you've got 3 dragons, you're on soul point. That's valuable because you have the stats of 3 dragons, but also you can force every team fight around dragon because you can get soul. That's like valuable, right? If the enemy team has soul, that 3 dragons is worth whatever it is fewer because, well, you're not on soul point. You can literally never get soul this game, so you've no longer like walked partway through that door, which I think was very smart and really intelligent how the game is actually played. It's for me, I've played maybe 100 games or so since preseason. It's like if we don't have bounties yet, I'm like, we can't be that far behind. Like we're not that screwed. And we do have bounties. It's like, I think I can point to and we can go cross map them. And it's like, we probably are like an 85-15 when we have bounties online. But like now we have things to go point to try to get back in.
I think my glass half full for bounties is that it's like people maybe want to FF a little bit less, which can be nice. It's like, we could maybe come back if we win a fight and pick up some bounties. My glass half empty is definitely that when I'm winning and bounties spawn for the other team, I don't want to do anything except stand in my lane and stop him from getting bounty, which is like maybe just incorrect or an error in my thinking. But it does feel frustrating that I'm like, oh, I just slammed this person top. Now let me go do something else on the map. Oh, actually, JK, there's a bounty here, and I don't want to give the Kale like my full tower plus an objective bounty here, and then feel like he's back in the game.
That 500 gold is worth at least 750 if you started the bounty. You know, up to I think it can be like 40% more than the bounty's worth, whatever. But like, yeah, you know, Kale gets an extra 50 gold over the top of it, and that obviously is scary and whatnot. Yeah, yeah, that can definitely be a thing.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm good on preseason talk.
Yep. All right. Well, Riot Games, according to there was an article that came out that Reggie is being investigated basically over bullying allegations. You know, this is something that there was obviously like some kind of back and forth with Doublelift and Reggie and some of the TSM drama kind of that happened around that. And now this is kind of like going into potentially next steps. I don't have any insider info or anything. We're just going purely off of this article that there is an investigation. The only thing, like, I'm not going to speculate or anything. The only thing I'm going to say is that, like, having lived in some gaming houses and having, you know, known a lot of pros and talked to pros and coaches and everything, some of the stuff, like, people definitely are not behaving appropriately in some situations, you know, not necessarily like in this situation. That remains to be seen. But I do think it's good that people can be held accountable, you know, even retroactively potentially for some of the things that people are in, right? Like, you know, there can be some weird situations when your boss is like there and living with you and in a position of power, and like those relationships can get weird, right? Where you know, it's easy to say, oh, just like stand up for yourself or like tell them no or whatever, but it's like, well, they also like pay you and decide if you're going to get signed again next year or not.
And, like, you have to find a new home potentially, you know, like
especially in the older days, like people lived at the team houses, but even now, often the teams are paying for the pro players' apartments and stuff. So like you're pretty beholden to these people in those relationships. So I think it can be difficult in those spots. So I think it's a positive thing if there is some sort of like oversight or at least some sort of like pressure or you know, whatever, whether it comes from like the Players Association or Riot or whoever, to like just treat the players with respect and make sure that everything is like above board and that no one's really being bullied.
Since it's early in the year and we're doing glass half full takes, I think that is the glass half full take, that like, well, at least, you know, no matter what comes of this, it shows that there's efforts being made to make sure that the workplaces in esports, which, as you said, historically have been a little Wild West, are starting to make sure that there's actual oversight on them. So that's the positive angle to put on it. It's also just crazy, given that, like, you know, Reggie's extensive history in the scene, how big of a figure he is, that, like, you know, everyone should be held to this standard, and there's not any sort of preferences going around, at least, from what we can tell so far.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not even sure what I like want to say, but like, I mean, to all your points, like, agreed, right? Like, if he's being an asshole, if he's hurting people, like, yes, like, something should be done, like, whatever. In general, like, and this is like a very like vague statement, kind of on purpose, is like, people like grabbing pitchforks, right? And so, you know, if you're gonna look over someone's, you know, very public 11-year history, like, you're going to find some things that happened, and like, those happen, and like, hey, if that's enough, that's enough, right? But like, if you do a supercut of anyone's life over a decade, like, you can make them look like the best or worst person in the world, because you know, in a lot of cases, like, there's some things, you know, there's some lines you obviously don't cross, right? Like, there are objectively terrible things you can do.
Some things worse than others.
I don't know about worst person in the world, but you can make someone look like a jerk.
You can make someone look like a terrible person or a saint with a supercut of 10 years of their life, like almost anyone. So it's like, that's just going to be true for most human beings. And so, you know, if you get your news from Reddit, which a lot of people do, or you get your news from Twitter, like, it's a really, 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 really bad news source. So just like, keep that in mind, right? That, like, you are never getting the full story from, you know, everyone's got their opinion and their angle when they're writing an article or whatever. And just like, in general, keep that in mind. And again, I have no idea what's actually going on here. So like, this is not even meant to be a defense or a condemnation, because I don't actually know. But like, just in general, this kind of stuff, like, just know everyone's biased. That's it, really.
Yeah, of course. And I think with any reasonable investigation, you would be talking to, that's why you check many different sources. You talk to all the players and the coaches and the staff and everyone who were there during these situations, and you build a more accurate picture, right? Because everyone has their version of the story, and then the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
but I also know the court of public opinion matters, right? Like, there's the NASCAR driver, like Brandon whoever, who had nothing to do with the whole "Let's Go Brandon" chants, which became F Joe Biden. Like, he's just...
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll give you the quick story for those who don't know. There's a NASCAR race some while back. And his name is Brandon something. I have no idea. I don't know the guy at all. And the fans were cheering F Joe Biden. And the interviewer, like either intentionally or unintentionally, says, "Oh, are they saying let's go Brandon?" And that became the like dog whistle F Joe Biden chant. People just started saying let's go Brandon
to mean
F Joe Biden.
So this driver became unsponsorable.
Yeah, this driver's now unsponsorable. He did nothing wrong except win a race. So just by being like attached to a PR disaster, his career is like very screwed. Like,
hopefully
not his fault,
because it also has gotten a lot of attention. So that can sometimes take it full circle, where then like
sure,
people
he can go back and write a book or whatever. But like,
or well, hopefully just get sponsored and continue.
Yeah, people are like, this is ridiculous.
But yeah, the whole point is just be like, some people just get screwed by court of public opinion, right?
Yep.
By stuff outside their control. And again, this is not an opinion on Reggie specifically, but just like this stuff happens, and I just like wish we as a society would do better than be like super knee jerk about stuff.
Yeah, stay even keel a little bit, listen to all the sides, but obviously that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Anyways,
there we go.
Question of the day. I'll drop this one on you guys. There's been a lot of Twitter questions asking this, so we're coming with it from here, but we put a little spin on it given my at least recent gacha history. With the league kind of divided into the teams that are spending a lot more and the teams that are, not spending as much, the whales and the free-to-play, if you are familiar with gacha terms, which of the free-to-play teams can break into the top 5 and into the whale category?
Well, there's an easy answer for me.
What's your easy answer?
I'm double checking to make sure I'm not trolling on the rosters here. Immortals. They still have Xerxes. They have PoE. They have PoE unless I'm hard trolling.
Yep. It's
Turtle?
Revenge, Xerxes, PoE, Turtle, and Destiny.
Yeah, like that's a great roster. Destiny, I was like, he's solid. Turtle, I think, like gets back to his peak. He's top 280 carries, right? Like the guy is like really, really incredible. I really like PoE. It's another year, another team, as it has been for him. But like I was super hot on Xerxes the entire time. I know people like kind of throw flame at his unusual champion pool, but also like AP Bruiser items got super buffed this season.
Yeah.
Like Abyssal Mask is great. Demonic Embrace is great. Like there's a lot of good stuff you can build there. Riley's getting buffed next patch to be like absurdly strong. So like all that weird stuff's going to work out. I think this team is amazing. Like I have them as a top 5 currently. Even with everyone's full rosters, I have them top 5.
And to be clear, for people who might not know, so essentially there's like 5 teams that are spending much more than the rest of the league. Those 5 teams would be 100 Thieves, C9, TSM, EG,
TL.
and TL. Right, so those are your kind of like big 5 as far as the people that are spending, and that's why presumably the like everyone is expecting to get top 5, right? Like that is kind of the expected result for those teams, and I think finishing below that for those teams is a huge failure, right? If you're spending much more than teams below you and they finish above you, well, guess what? They did a much better job building their roster.
You spent 8 times the amount of money on the year and they got more wins than you. It's like, ooh, your scouting sucks.
I think, arguably you could be like, well, we're looking for the future, but
I mean, some of them definitely are a little more future oriented. Yeah. Like you could TSM despite spending money is very much invested in not necessarily winning. Like they don't need to win Worlds right now. Yeah.
And you have LS saying it's top 4 at Worlds or bust, right?
Yeah. That's a different mindset than what TSM has said.
Yeah.
Right. That's a different mindset from like, Golden Guardians or CLG where they're like, not last.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm debating for me whether it's CLG or Golden Guardians because I like a lot of the Golden Guardians core that they kept. And in the previous episode of the dive, I said you could count a lot of them as the moves that they did make as potential upgrades.
Top 5. Potential upgrades. No shot.
For either of them.
CLG is like...
For Golden Guardians.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, then CLG is my pick, so you can't pick them.
Okay. Well, sure.
I mean, won't.
I was hyping up CLG last episode. I had the prediction gun, remember?
Yeah.
And gun to my own head, I was like, CLG is my dark horse. So I'm a huge believer in Luger. I think Jenkins was better than people gave him credit for last split. Contracts was already starting in the LCS. He was looking really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm gonna power rank the free-to-play teams, the minnows or whatever, it's
actually maybe Garden Guardians. They may have a chance.
I mean, and Ablalov's still there, and he's great.
Yeah.
So
I got him.
Yeah, it's
lost.
It's FlyQuest Immortals and Golden Guardians are like the 3 for me. And all I'm really saying is I don't think Dignitas and CLG are very good.
I think it's realistically though. I think it's if I had to bet, it's only Immortals. That has a
it's
chance.
Immortals and then like Golden Guardians and
because I think the very like glass half full like kind of look is like if you're Immortals, you're like we made FlyQuest when they made to the finals twice in a row, right? And that's kind of like what you're hoping. You're hoping that you built the FlyQuest roster and not the CLG roster from last year, right? Because it's like This is a team that has a lot of similarities, a lot of the similar pieces to that FlyQuest roster. Obviously, there are some differences, but Pewee and Turtle kind of as the main carries. Obviously, Revenge instead of Solo. It's not Santorin. It is Xerxes, but he's obviously very good. Yeah. Destiny versus Ignar. That to me is maybe where the comparison falls apart the most. I think Ignar was actually playing really well as like an aggressive playmaker, and Destiny I don't think consistently played on that level. But it's also, we talked about this a little bit last in our holiday episode, but it's kind of like the old school style of building a roster too, right? So to me, they actually have to do pretty well for it to be a success at all, because their only kind of like bet for the future really is Revenge, right? Like they're not going for like all these like brand new players. I feel like they're going more to win now, right? And that's what CLG did last year, and then they were the worst team in the league, which is why it was like, well, this couldn't be worse, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to get last for it to be a failed experiment in that sense. Like you can get 8th and be like, well, what was the point?
Exactly. You don't really learn that much about like what you want the future of your org to be potentially, and you don't win now. So I think that is the risk of like going for the veteran rosters in this kind of like new era. It's like if you're building veteran and you can't win or you can't contest for going to Worlds, well, then what was the point in doing that? You should have just tried to figure out something for 3 years from now where you get all these rookies and then you find a couple really good young players, and well, then you import around them and you make your push to try to win.
Yeah, I will say the cautious optimism for FlyQuest, Immortals, and Golden Guardians is actually 4, 5, 6. Like there is a world to me, and it's not a likely one, but there is a world where all 3 make playoffs, which is the world where the TSM and Cloud9 experiments both fail, right? Like if LS's macro shot calls are actually wrong and you can't freeze every lane and you can't play hard herbivore jungle 100% CS Karthus, right? Like if those things are actually trash and you just lose every game because you get, they just run over all your turrets, it's like, oh, okay, well, this team's just like gonna suck for a while, right? And we, as far as I can see, right, both C9 and TSM aren't getting their rosters in for lock-in, so they're getting even less practice time, and these players aren't playing together. It is a mixed language team, which means if coordination actually sucked, and it's like nothing came together. Like I remember being told for months that Seraph was the next thing, and Monte Cristo is like just talk about how good he is during like All Stars, and it's like you can't wait. You can't wait to see this guy. Like he's an understudy under like Save or whoever, and like he's gonna be amazing. And it's like this is the worst top laner the entire 3-year history of the LCS. Like this is abysmal. And here's LS doing a very similar road of LCK color commentator, becomes coach, becomes bringing over his Korean import friends he thinks are good.
Summit is very different, though.
Summit is different.
Be careful
I'm
about
more
that
talking
one.
about like, the Berserker Winsome thing and the entire project, right? And the fact that like...
But Summit's going to be the best top lane in the LCS.
Summit is legitimately amazing, right? But he's actually proven against other amazing players, not like... But he was good in Challenger that one time. Like, I remember doing research on Winsome like during Worlds and whatnot, and it's like, you look at T1 Academy and it's like, they were a 9th place team until other players joined the roster, and then that squad got second place twice. And it's like, so it wasn't Winsome. Like he wasn't the reason why.
Come on,
it means Berserker, right? But like, I know, right? Like, and it's not
I'm
like
not saying your argument is wrong,
right?
But the argument that you just made, is so poor and has so many holes in it. Like holy shit, it's bad, right?
Okay.
Like
I was just gonna sail right through the holes. I wasn't gonna even acknowledge them.
But I mean, it's like, come on, right?
Yeah,
it's like
I'm not saying because it happened, he's clearly gonna be trash. I'm just saying like
it's like PoE was on Optic. 9th place team, and then he goes on FlyQuest. Well, it's clearly not him making it to the finals. This shit mid laner, like, come on.
Yeah, I understand your point, but but then he goes back to TSM and they get like 5th, right? Like, how much carrying is he doing, Azael?
Shut up.
I know. Okay, all I'm saying is like there is a world where this team actually isn't very good.
Yes,
I'm not saying like, oh yeah, TSM are my 7th place team, because I'm not saying that. I don't actually believe
totally
that,
agree
right?
with you. Yeah.
But like, there is some evidence out there to suggest that, hey, if you look deeper, maybe it really is the case here. And again, I haven't watched the games, right? So I don't know. But I'm saying that there was stuff to say, hey, maybe you should caution.
This question was about which of the free-to-play was going to join the whales.
The free-to-play are going to beat TSM and C9.
He's the glass half empty.
He answered which whale's going to end up beached. Cloud9's going to be beached.
We need some marine biologists over here. Get George Costanza.
Right. Well, if they don't make playoffs, that's a pretty catastrophic failure.
It's going to be pretty hard to make Worlds if you don't make playoffs.
Yeah.
Especially from the like expected result of we must win both splits and get top 4 at Worlds. Or it's a failure, and Phreak's like,
you want to
don't make playoffs,
LCS, dog.
Yeesh.
All right.
first step begins this weekend, actually. Lock-in tournament. So if people haven't heard, I mean, we did a big coverage of the Lock-in tournament in the previous episode. You can find a lot of our initial takes about the groups and that kind of stuff in there. Since then, there's been some rumblings of roster problems. And so it's still not
visa issues.
Visa issues, these kinds of things where you're not sure exactly who's going to be playing in a couple days. And so whatever we're about to talk about in the future here, understand this is us going off roster speculations. It could change. A visa could get suddenly approved and someone's playing or whatever. But roster lock hasn't happened yet technically. So these are all still up in the air. But we're just, for the sake of it, we have to just assume a couple things to be able to talk about it.
We're going off of rumored rosters, you know, that we believe are like somewhat well informed and stuff. The rosters that we're going off of, I guess we can just go through as we come to the games.
Yeah.
Do you guys have some games that are really standing out in the first 2 days for you? Because day 1 is going to be Group A. Day 2 will be Group B. So we will see every team play over the first 2 days.
Yeah. I mean, the one that stands out for me is because I'm casting it especially, is Game 3 of day 2. It's EG versus TL, largely because rumor has it, according to Peter Dunn,
on Hotline League,
coaches won on Hotline League. I was there. I gave Travis a sub and told him to give you the money, even though I could have subbed to you and didn't think about it at the time. I've seen you tweet about streaming, but anyway,
you have to just give him $5 and then he gets more.
It's not on right now.
Doesn't take a cut.
It looks better in my analytics.
Yeah. I'll give 2 to Jeff Bezos.
I'll make less money, but it'll look better.
I'll give you $5 and you can sub to yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, Evil Geniuses, according to Peter Dunn, their head coach, is starting their full roster, which I'm very excited about. Inspired, I think, is going to Smurf. This is, one of my top teams for the league against Team Liquid, who appear to be without Core JJ. Those should still look quite good. Hansama is incredible. I am cautiously optimistic about Whippo in the top lane. He did take a split off, right, of playing jungle. That can mess with you sometimes. Perks did not come out quite as strongly in mid lane as we had hoped in his year on Cloud9, for example. So like this can certainly happen. The transitions can take time. So, EG looked really hot. TL, I mean, it's question marks for me a little bit, but that's a really hype matchup. It should be really fun on day 2.
I think the biggest part about that matchup is definitely Jojopyun versus Bjergsen.
Yeah.
Because we have the heralded North American talent, the Zoomer from Fortnite, the guy who's going to have the mechanics to save North America, going up kind of like the monolith in Bjergsen, who has been the staple mid laner. I mean, he took a year off, but still, he's the best North American mid laner historically. So that is such a huge test for your first game as a rookie to come in against him.
Yeah. And speaking to the Bjergsen's year off, like it was mostly a year off. Like obviously he's involved in pro. He's watching.
He's playing a lot of solo queue.
Yeah. So he wasn't. At least on a different account. So the account he's playing on right now is TL Bjergsen, but it's his old account, right? So you look at like his 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 stats, 700 games of the year or whatever, right? And yeah, he decays to Diamond because he goes to Worlds, but I look at his 2021 account and it's like his most played champ has like 14 games on it. In the last year, it was 55, right? Like it was significantly fewer games. Now, maybe he was smurfing the entire year. I don't know why he would do that. It's the 1 year he wasn't playing a lot of leagues, so it was a lot fewer games.
I believe that. I was assuming because I saw that DM chain where Spico was like messing with Bjergsen while Bjergsen was playing solo queue, and he got really mad about it.
He didn't play none, but it was nowhere close to his old stuff.
Yeah. It's always hard to know, right? Because it also can just be kind of like, if you're not playing as much, I can also see it from like my pro brain point of view of like, maybe I don't want to attach my name to this account if I don't think I'm playing as well, because like I'm not scrimming all day too. So maybe he still played a lot, who knows? But definitely, I think people will form some strong opinions about Bjergsen probably off of this game instantly, right? Fair or not. I definitely, we talked about this last time, but I was of the opinion that, it had been a bit of a drop for him. Like when I was watching him stream, he's been streaming a lot lately. Watched a lot of him playing in Korea. I did think he was making a lot more mistakes than he used to. So it'll be interesting. And you mentioned they're not playing with Core JJ. It is Ayla. Or Isla, I'm not sure.
Ayla,
I think. And my understanding was he actually had some LCS offers, but like specifically wanted to stay with TL to learn from Core JJ. So like he's supposed to be, like the Core JJ apprentice. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs, because I have heard actually a lot of really positive things about this guy. And that'll be interesting because obviously the bot lane is this key component for them. EG, if you don't know the roster, it is, Impact Inspired, Jojopyun, Danny, and Vulcan. Really excited for them to have gotten Vulcan and Inspired. Jojopyun, I think, is going to be really interesting. I'm not sure if he's going to be as good out the gate, but I think he definitely could end up being like one of the best mid laners in the league, just based on people are so excited about him, and I'm kind of like buying into that excitement a bit.
Bought it?
I have bought a little bit into the Jojopyun hype, but Inspired and Vulcan, I just think are great pickups no matter who your team is. Inspired, LCS, or rather LEC MVP in summer, and Vulcan I still think is one of the best players in the league. You know, I think he was really, really good for Cloud9. Yes, he had some bad games at Worlds, but I also think he's the reason that they win a lot of the games that they win. So him paired with Danny, if Danny's laning gets better playing with Vulcan, like if he's just been working on that, because that's been the clear weakness for Danny, right? So if the laning phase improves and him and Vulcan can become a really threatening 2v2 lane, which I think they can, EG becomes terrifying, right? Because Danny is already a monster in team fights. It was always his laning that really needed work. So I think there's a lot of reason to be excited for EG.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the Han Sama versus Danny matchup as well. Given that, Tactical debuted and then had a sophomore slump, I'm wondering, how Danny's going to hold up over the course of his second year and kind of getting tested right away. I'll give you another game I'm excited about, also from Group B, sticking here for now, is actually the game that happens later because they'll be playing multiple games a day. It's EG versus CLG to end day 2 because I was just hyping up CLG. One, we have Luger and Poom now going up against Danny and Vulcan. I think for the same reason, that's an interesting new bot lanes kind of going at each other. I am on the CLG hype train a little bit to begin with. I think EG will be a really good team for the reasons that you were just hyping up. It'll be a really good test for them. They do play early in the day versus Immortals, but I'm just personally more hyped for this one, for the NA rookie talent, as well as all the other players that are coming in. Jenkins and Palafox. It's like, there's so much young talent in this game that, like, if you want to watch the future of the LCS, this is probably the best single game to watch.
Yeah, it's really up there. I mean, the one thing I want to say is Evil Geniuses are my favorite to win Lock In overall.
Over 100 Thieves.
Yes. I think they are, to me, just right now, they are the strongest team in the LCS today. And here's the thing, though. So I'm doing a pure guess here. A pure guess here is we have not heard anything from 100 Thieves yet. So we don't know who's playing, but most teams with Korean players are not getting to play their Korean players, right? CoreJJ is not going to be here. Cloud9's not playing the roster. They're not Korean, but TSM's not playing their roster. I'm just going to take the hard bet. And they already said, like, hey, by the way, Tenacity and Someday, they're co-starting top laners, right? I mean, maybe someday here, maybe he's not. Tenacity's going to play all of Lock In, and they're going to be not as good as EG, even though we also have the unproven talent of Jojopyun, right, against the unproven talent of Tenacity. So it's not like I should just believe they're better. But I'm just going to take the shot. I'm going to make the call that EG just wins the whole thing. And 100 Thieves, I think, get to smurf on their group, even with Tenacity. I think they're going to be very good. Like, they're number 2. That's the finals, right? They're both going to win their groups. They're both going to go 4-0. They're going to win their groups. TSM have functionally an academy team going. Cloud9 has a pretty good looking roster, but also half an academy team at this point with Isles and Darshan. That's confirmed. So
Sven as well.
They both
Academy
just
bot laner.
Okay, yeah, Sven's actually good though, right? So it's like, hey,
you guys heard this up-and-comer Sven in Academy? It's looking pretty good.
But your brightest points on Cloud9 are Sven and Blabber, who are both very good. Fudge mid could be complete trash. I mean, Fudge top was trash during Lock In, so Fudge mid could be trash during Lock In.
I'm really excited to watch Cloud9 though, actually, because I'm hyped for Fudge particularly.
Yeah.
I do think anytime you swap roles, it's pretty risky, I think, career-wise. And if I was him, I don't think I would have done this. I thought it was silly when Bwipo did it. I thought it was silly when Treats did it. A lot of these swaps, I think, don't actually help your career. It potentially can, but oftentimes it doesn't really, right? It's Treats just went back to support, and people will kind of almost I saw a lot more people with negative opinion of him when he's coming off the best year ever that he had as a support. Bwipo, I think, did pretty well as a jungler, but still, you're left with more of these questions about him, oh, how good of a top laner is he? Whereas people were kind of looking at him as one of the best Western top laners previously. So I do think it's risky. It's very early in Fudge's career. If he pulls it off, I think it's super hype. I'm just really kind of excited about Fudge as a player though, and his growth, because of how much he improved from Lock-In to Worlds, right? It was, you are the reason your team loses the game, to you are the reason your team wins the game in a lot of cases, I felt like, for Cloud9. So his improvement was meteoric, and I'm really excited to see him playing. I'm looking forward to Cloud9 versus FlyQuest as a result.
Pick a game.
Yeah, that's the one.
C9 FlyQuest. Yeah.
Right, speed. And it lets me say, okay, am I completely full of hot air? And again, this is a single language Cloud9 team, right? Everyone's going to be fluent in English in this case.
Yeah.
So it's not really the test for what is the Berserker, Summit version, when Summit I think is just completely duolingual. No, what is it? Bilingual. There we go. But like, so, you know, that's still just we're just,
dual wielding English and Korean. Here we go.
Lingual. Here we go. Yeah. So you know, it's kind of unfortunate that I don't get to know the answer to any of my questions around TSM and Cloud9, because that's just always the thing. Like, I'm not cold on imports. I'm cold on teams that can't talk with one another. I know I asked you this question when we were in last week for something else, but the idea is, does a team that has to get over language barriers, do they start lower and grow higher than a team that doesn't do that? So, you know, FlyQuest or, you know, EG is my example of teams that, like, well, they're speaking English and we'll just see them grow. We'll see where it goes. And you've got a TSM or Cloud9 where maybe their individual skill is really high. But like, does that suck day one because they haven't learned how to work at anything? Or does it suck on week 13 because their practice is so much less efficient? So, I don't know which way that goes.
To me, at least in theory, it's just that like your team play should be worse, but your individuals should still look good, right? And that's kind of like where I'm at with TSM and Cloud9, right? You know, if Kaido or like, you know, Shenyi or Berserker or whatever look horrible individually, well, that's probably not just language, right? So I do think team coordination, like there's more room for improvement. So theoretically, if your team is improving, you know, as you should be, like both through communication and through team coordination, there's more ways for you to improve, right? So there should be more room for growth, I think, for those teams. So I do think that's like the positive way to look at it. Of course, when there's more room for growth and more room for improvement, there's more room for things to go wrong, right? There's more ability for people to get frustrated with the lack of communication and things like that, which can stunt your growth and make your team worse overall. So that is a concern. I do have the question of like, how good is Fudge going to be mid laner? So for me, that's why I'm still excited to watch them in Lock In, because I do think that's going to be answered. And I do think it'll be pretty interesting to see him going up against Toucouille, because I actually do think that is a player who people emphasize his laning phase is his strength. Mages are actually really good right now. I do think that is his bread and butter, is control mages. So, you know, he should be a challenge. Like, this is a player that I think people were really not excited about, but having talked to, you know, LEC mid laners, having talked to people working the LFL coaches, like, he is someone that had a respected laning phase, you know, even against, you know, some of the best LEC mids, he was supposed to be a really tough person to lane against if he's playing control mages. So I think it should be a good first test for him and for Fudge.
Yeah, especially since Fudge's weakness in theory should be mid lane control mages,
matchups
like,
and stuff.
Yeah, like not knowing exactly when the trading patterns work and stuff. And so if
set mid, he knows.
Yeah, set he can play. If Akali's probably played more of those games and stuff like that. Renekton mids, sure, let's swap it there.
And that's gonna be interesting. Like, does he go that route, or does he just hard commit to learning now? Right? Do you say, well, I actually don't care about winning Lock In. I need to get 20 games of Azir in, because Azir is going to be popular later, right? Or do you go, no, I'm going to play my style, and he just comes out with like Renekton, Aurelia, you know, like Akshan, you know, like Kled and Malphite. He's just like Doomby, but without the control mages.
Without the rise in the back pocket. Yeah. No, I think that's what's interesting about it. Toucouille as well, for people, he was the LFL MVP in spring, I believe. So he actually like has some cred, you know, like don't totally sleep on him. Unfortunately for Group A, there are a lot more teams with this academy issue. TSM is running basically a full academy lineup. We already talked about C9. Golden Guardians as well is running an academy lineup. And funnily enough, when you talked about the someday thing, or the 100 Thieves thing,
Tenacity.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this on Hotline League. Papa Smithy was in chat, and when he was talking about building the groups, EG got sent into Group B. And initially, Peter Dunn was like, oh, yeah, I was excited about that because I thought I was going to scrim 100 Thieves, C9 in TSM. Right. But then they had all these issues. And then, you know, Papa Smithy in chat goes, yeah, I knew they were going to have issues just like logistically looking at all the new players they were getting. So that's why I put them I wanted them in my group so I didn't have to scrim their academy teams all tournament long. So he giga brained which teams are going to have roster issues and sent EG over there, even though he doesn't think, you know, ceiling wise, EG might have been the second best team.
That's funny.
He giga brained it,
That's
which
smart.
Also makes me think his roster's fine. I'm pretty sure 100 Thieves roster is mostly fine. I think they will still use
Tenacity. Had rumors, that they were just going to play Tenacity, even though my understanding is that if they wanted to win, they would play Someday. But I think they'll play Tenacity.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you're crazy. I'm taking 100 Thieves to win this whole tournament.
Me too.
EG in TL is actually the closer thing to me about who's going to be in the finals with them potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think EG has potential to be an amazing roster, but even just beyond like if you have roster issues or not. I do think it's still like such an advantage for 100 Thieves to be coming off of a year where they won the championship in summer, made no roster changes, and you just play again, right? Like they know how they want to play League. They know how to practice and how to work together in the personalities. EG has a lot of new people coming in, right? It's not just Inspired and Jojopyun. Vulcan's there too. Like you have to kind of create the way you want to play the game. And then there is also the question of like how does Jojopyun do at the LCS level?
Especially since so much of their identity last season seemed to be tied to Jizuke. And even though Jojopyun's an aggressive mid laner, people say he likes to take risks, like it's not like he's gonna just be Jizuke.
Yeah, I mean Jizuke was incredible last year, right? Like he was first runner up for MVP. He was second
team
place.
All Pro at least.
Yeah, he was first team All Pro, and I thought he got second in MVP voting. At least he was like up there. But yeah, I mean, he hard carried a lot of games for EG. So there are going to be pretty big shoes for Jojopyun to fill. Like Jizuke had those silly moments, but Jizuke also solo won a lot of games for EG last year. So if Jojopyun is not playing well, there are going to be, it's going to be a lot more pressure basically on other people to carry the game.
Yep. And so, the way I'm going to view it is the way I kind of viewed Fudge last year, where like if you're bad at the start, you're bad at the start, and I'm gonna call that out. And then if you're great by week 5, I'm gonna realize it for everyone else and get flamed until everyone else realizes it, right? So like, hey, Jojopyun, I hope you're the second best mid laner in the league by March.
Sweet. All right. Well, we're not going to cover all the matches, but this is going to be kicking off this weekend. Really excited for Lock In to be back. If you guys missed the holiday episode, we did do more of kind of like a general preview of our strength of teams, so you guys can check that out. And of course, the dive will be continuing every week from here on out. We'll talk about the matches that happen this next weekend. And once we get to see some of these players playing for Lock In, we'll be able to break down how we think they did. That'll wrap it up for this episode of The Dive. Remember, if you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor.fm. And make sure you continue to send us your questions on Twitter using the hashtag TheDiveLOL so we can feature them on the episodes. And if tweets aren't your thing, you can send us audio questions on Anchor.fm still. The LCS Lock In begins this Friday with TSM facing off against 100 Thieves, 2:30 p.m. PST. And that will be the first of 3 days of LCS action. So make sure to block out your weekend as we get started for the 2022 season. I'll see you there.